This is part 6 of the Dwarfs Abridged campaign. In the previous part, we took out our skeleton neighbours with relative ease, but this caused us to be neighbours to more powerful skeletons. We've started a war with them, and so far it's going pretty well, mainly because the AI made a series of mistakes that prevented me from being punished for entering the war without really being ready for it. We've already taken out a couple of their armies, but there are plenty more to go. My goal was to have our main force under Uldor come down towards the Black Tower of Arkan there to take out that enemy force that's sitting next to it. We though see another force appear up at Bel Aliad where Uldor was before, inconveniently. This time it's what must be their main force, led by Cetra. The army itself isn't anything too special, it's just got a good commander. I believe this was another case where I was like 1 or 2 turns away from finishing the construction of walls here. So if that had been done, this would be quite easy to defend. We'd have more units and towers. Without that, while there probably was still a case for trying that one, I decided to just let them have the town for dramatic purposes, I suppose. We are though going to go straight into a different settlement defense that we are going to do, because the army I was hunting went south and attacked this settlement that I've actually got slightly garrisoned with 1 command and 2 units. Plus this place has a garrison building, but only the level 2 one, so there are no walls, but it does have a nearly full stack of troops inside. Therefore, this is a perfectly reasonable battle to go for. We even have a new unit to play with, the Steel Rain Mortar. It's essentially a cluster bomb weapon that's extremely inaccurate, but it's good at firing at the enemy when they're all grouped together, because while you're missing stuff, you'll just hit something else instead. And it's very powerful when it does hit, so we get a bunch of early kills with the mortar attacks. As for the rest of the plan, it's the usual. Here's an example of the inaccuracy. You can see how far away the shots are landing from each other. It just shoots all over the place, even at relatively close range. Maybe that's useful, but once the enemy are close in, it's going to become much less useful, obviously. In this battle, we're going to be quite outflanked. The enemy certainly have numbers on their side, but I am up against the edge of the map behind me, which will help out. And in the middle, our gunners are going to absolutely blast the advancing enemy and blow them away. In some cases, we even have the blunderbuss versions of the Legionnaires, the guys who have slightly better ranged attacks than our usual fare. We also have some shield wall troops. These are melee specialists that are probably better than the Legionnaires at holding the enemy in place. They have very high armor and melee defense effectively, so they can stand there on our flanks and just hold up all of this stuff that's all over the place. Kind of looks like we're getting overwhelmed, but it's less bad than it looks because they're not going to damage us very much. I'm trying to fight with their boat out here on the flank. That actually went quite poorly. The boat looked like it was going to win the fight, and it successfully distracted my infantry there and caused them to not stop all of this stuff that's coming in nearby. Instead, my 1 reserve unit, the sentries, now has to hold off the Ushbati, who are going to be very good against them. The sentries are more of a flanking unit, and the Ushbati are an anti-infantry unit, so that's probably not the best. Plus my mortar was shooting into the melee and hitting my own side, all good stuff. At least their commander's not doing anything too useful, just stuck in a melee and fighting with one of my heroes as well, or my commander I think. That's all good. Here's another classic spawn of monster units. They don't spawn it on top of our artillery this time, and in fact it doesn't do all that much in this battle, mainly because I played this one entirely on slow motion when doing it live. So I very quickly reacted and turned tons of units to shoot in at the newly spawned enemies, and while they appear to be queuing up to join a fight, they're being shot to pieces from behind. Plus the blunderbuss troops, who have a very powerful short-range melee attack, can do the old guard mode shoot-in melee trick to blast them from that side as well. So in short order, we clear this situation up with shots flying all over the place, handily over the head of our short warriors. Great. On the left flank, things went better than expected, simply because the shield wall proved to be good enough in melee to resist the enemy's generic warrior units and the Nakara warriors, which I think are their low tier units. Looking good. The other flank's more messy, but with the centre now over, we can shoot into this flank and start to clear things up, even firing the mortar into the flank as well. That's almost certainly hitting my own side, but a lot of my own side is garrison, so it doesn't really count if they die, whereas the enemy have real units more worth killing. Things are getting a little bit more chaotic as enemy cav starts to maraud around our centre and stop our guys from shooting. A good idea from the AI. but it's not really going to be enough. They still have that balance bar advantage, but they're starting to crumble and disintegrate here and there. Looks like we're going to win that left flank, and while the right flank is certainly messier, we're pretty close to taking out their commander here. Looks like he's running away. But as long as a few of our units can spot him and shoot from a distance, he'll go down. This is another advantage to having mostly ranged units. Enemy heroes will struggle to escape because you can snipe them as they move away from you. So we kill that hero, or kill that lord, just in time to take a rear cav charge, but that's all fine. With that, we're going to see more crumbling and more disintegrating. Looks like a couple of units over here are going to disappear out of the fight. I've also finally found a good target for my mortars. We can shoot at this chariot archer unit, and because they're kind of a big unit taking up a lot of space, the super inaccuracy of the mortars is sort of suitable. Although we're still hitting our own nearby scouts by the looks of things. So a very dangerous mortar unit to use. It's only the tier 1 artillery unit for our faction. Still hoping to see some more interesting things later on once I finally make the buildings and go back to get the units. From here, it just turns into a stats war. Most stuff ends up engaged in melee or out of ammunition, so we just have to hope we'll win. Since the enemy have mostly melee units, that's going to be pretty easy, combined with crumbling and disintegrating. They're all just standing here. Most of their troops can't fight us right now because they're queuing for stuff. This is the big disadvantage in this game of melee units in general. They're mostly not applying their strength at any given time. Ranged units can all fight at once because they can see through each other and shoot through their own side, things like that. Well, we win the number battle at the end. We also got 100 rank ups according to this onto our commander. It also says rank 2 on the tooltip. I think the tooltip probably has it right there. Anyway, that's another enemy army down and another settlement defense, one using mainly garrison units. We're really getting away with this. I do think that for this faction, because your units are supposed to be small, rare and expensive as they are in our main force, the fact that we have like 20 times our main force's worth of troops in garrison units across our territory is kind of like a balance breaker. Our garrisons are going to be as good as our main armies, and they're pretty cheap to get in comparison to main armies, so there's a massive incentive to not really deploy normal troops with this. And I think the answer balance-wise is probably to scale down the garrisons. Well, if the mod author happens to be watching this, there you go, that's my thoughts on that. But for now, I'm grateful to have taken out those enemy forces. Now I'm going to throw this small force back up to the Black Tower of Arcan to build up more troops and defend there, while Uldor will head back towards Bel Aliad to take down Settra and the not particularly powerful army located there. Or will he? Well, I spoke too soon, because the next thing it turns out that Settra does is move away from Bel Aliad and attack Martech instead. Not such a bad move. This was yet another case where I'd nearly finished building the level 3 garrison building chain where you get walls on your minor settlements. A shame, but we still have something here. That balance bar's not too bad, probably because of the enemy army not being that good. This is probably like the starting army that they began the campaign with of generic trash units, just with a really good commander on top of it. So I was happy enough to go ahead with this one. We encounter once again the issue with our stand there and do nothing battle plan, that is the enemy bringing artillery. Surprisingly, we've been getting away with this so far, but here is a case where we're going to get pounded by these ghostly skulls. My plan was to kind of just walk up and down. Sometimes if you move a unit around, the AI will obsessively try to hit it, and will miss quite a lot because you're moving. We have some more of those mortars to fire back. We have enough range on them to actually hit those catapults. I thought maybe we could take them out. The problem is the accuracy. There you can see a volley just landing, well, nowhere useful to us. I ended up switching them too far at the enemy's infantry so we'd actually get some kills with all of our misses, and we'll just take the damage from their catapults. Now here's a very useful development. The enemy faction leader, I think, Settra, rushes forward alone and thus gets targeted by everything. Half of their health is gone by the time they reach our line, and it's not going to stop there. We can keep shooting and indeed throw some axes by the looks of things. Soon Settra's down to like no health at all. They try and get out of here, which might be a good idea, but running in front of us probably isn't at this stage. Just running through our army might be a better plan, because more shots are fired, and with that we take out the enemy faction leader before the battle even really starts. And for an undead army, taking out their commander will really help we'll get that crumbling and disintegrating much faster. Still getting hit by those spooky skulls, but you can see their area of effect is very small. They're landing right next to us, but not really doing very much, which is handy. I think they just suck as an artillery unit. Don't need to worry too much about them in the end. Now the main battle plan goes ahead. We'll stand around and block the enemy while stuff shoots. The artillery is doing a pretty good job actually of taking out the enemy archers while most of the shots miss. Their shots are incredibly powerful and with a wide area of effect, meaning the low accuracy isn't having a massive impact on their ability to take out these units. These archers are already starting to look weak and it's only getting worse for them. Pretty good stuff. There was also a chariot unit again to fire at, where it's somewhat okay to be inaccurate. You'll probably still hit them just about, and we're just about avoiding hitting our own infantry by sheer luck there. That catapult's still plugging away, not doing all that much. I've sent somebody to run towards it and try to take it out. It keeps missing as well. Low accuracy and poor area of effect. That is not a very effective siege weapon, especially against our small units, I suppose. We're making it hard for them. Taking quite a lot of arrows, but not too bothered about that. Here was a nice duel. The enemy's chariot archers were shooting at my sentries who were throwing axes back, and throwing the axes seems to be the better solution here. They've only got a few archers, so they can't really take us down. This guy's having a really bad time. He's got his head in the sand, but he cannot avoid his fate on this one. This battle is starting to go our way. The balance bar's still roughly even, but essentially we have them. They're running out of troops fast. They did do the old spawn thing on top of our artillery, so the mortars are out of action, but we've got plenty of stuff to turn around and shoot into this fight to make it go okay. In many ways the mortars are just a sacrifice to allow everything else to shoot. In particular, these guys come up for a close range volley with the blunderbusses, the nice powerful weapon, and boom, down go a load of them. Also, they're disintegrating. The moment is upon us. The enemy's morale has gotten jointly too low. Everything will now die. Half of their balance bar disappears instantly. From here, victory is guaranteed. And someone eventually got over there to stop those catapults by getting them into melee. Lovely stuff. Overall, it went way better than I expected, actually. We absolutely annihilated them with very low casualties. Well, no casualties technically, because it was a garrison. They'll just be alive after this. It seems our war against the Tomb Kings is going extremely well, despite me not really playing the game, well, at all. We didn't even engage them with our main force. They just ran at us and died, mainly due to themselves making a bunch of bad decisions. So we've actually wasted a bunch of money with our main force just walking up and down, not doing anything. Should have taken some territories to the north or something. At least we could take back Bel Aliad, since Uldor happened to be there, and from there we might as well go over towards Pools of Despair. This was a place I was interested in taking because it's in our province. It's actually still defended by a full stack. I thought after killing like 3 or 4 enemy armies recently, there might be nothing here, but they've still got more stuff to throw at us. Well, it's not too much of an issue because we have Uldor's army, which can easily take down one enemy stack. Perhaps seeing the enemy's numbers, looks like I decided to start making a decent army of my own to be my secondary force. We've certainly got the income to have another stack of troops, so I'll start making one here. And I'm using a unique commander, the Legionary Lord Commander or something it's called. Basically a special kind of Dwarven commander only our modded faction can have. They have a grenade launcher and are generally pretty cool. We'll see them in action in a future part, I imagine. In the meantime, we've got a nice, easy battle gifted to us by the Tomb Kings. That stack in front of Uldor decides to attack while I'm in the underway, no less, to make it even easier for me. The balance bar says it all, really, for this one. We can absolutely destroy them with an auto-resolve, no casualties, that's all fine. Looks like we'll have to face lots of armies at once for the enemy to threaten us, or they'll have to put together some kind of elite army that has expensive stuff like mine. We're running up a limitation of the game's 20 unit cap, where 20 units from one faction and 20 from another certainly aren't equal, but that tends to be how the battles are, so being a small elite faction is always an advantage. I was actually checking out the tooltips because I was like, why am I so powerful? My balance bar advantage shouldn't be that large in one-on-ones, I was thinking. But after checking, we are very powerful. In particular, my Legionnaires have something like 100 missile damage. They're supposed to have 35, so that's just a result of all the different buffs stacking up from various different things. There's your commander buffs, there's hero buffs, there's technology buffs, stances. There are the traits your commander has that you build up by doing certain things that give you extra buffs on top of the usual level up buffs. Then there's equipment that can do that as well. And there are things that only trigger in situations in battle also. Essentially, our troops are very good, especially when it comes to missile strength. We have double to triple base damage. Damage that's actually comparable to siege weapons and heroes. So our scouts are essentially just groups of heroes doing 300 missile damage there, just a bit less than Khazran, perhaps half of a catapult impact. We're really, really powerful, and that's not even speaking to all of our power, because some things aren't shown in the tooltip, such as buffs you get from being near heroes in battle. I think the engineer buffs shooting when you're near him, and Oldor buffs things near him as well if they're above a certain rank or something like that. I can't even remember the full complexity. This game is full of stacking and overlapping buffs from different sources that can make all kinds of crazy overpowered builds. It's almost famous for that. Well, whatever the case, we annihilated the enemy there, we took that settlement, and now we're just going to walk right towards their capital. It's not so far away, and I thought we might as well just snap it up right now. Not a big deal because capitals just move, but there could be good buildings there and stuff. Nice to deny the enemy this first. Once we arrive, we can do the thing because they're all standing around their settlement again, the AI's favorite technique that makes them super vulnerable to lightning strikes. And as you can see, we even don't need this. We could not lightning strike and kill them. And that would probably be a good idea actually, since this would be a siege draw out. We'd avoid fighting their walled settlement. Well, perhaps I was feeling generous. I decided to do the lightning strike, which in this case only takes out one guy, this single commander. Then I will be forced to besiege the settlement because I'm stuck in its zone of control. So I did that, started making some equipment, thinking I would go in to make an attack. They, though, do another AI favorite move, the unwise sally. They come out to attack me when it's still to my advantage. It's a bit better than it was before for some reason. Cetra is on the field once again with a few new troops. The frame rate's messed up in this footage, by the way, because of a GeForce Experience update or something. Always ruining things. I managed to roll back the driver to make the game less unstable after a bit. So here's our decisive battle. The balance bar once again is now in their favour when we're in a manual resolve, but maybe it's lying because we're going to shoot them with some very powerful guns. And Cetra is doing the thing again. Didn't learn the lesson from the previous battle apparently. Looks like they're just going to walk into our missile range, or ride into our range, get shot, almost leave, and then go back in and die. So once again, a perfect start to the battle. It doesn't get any better than that, and we're not doing anything. The AI is just handing us this for free. Thank you very much. We need to use our gyrocopter to set up the Thunderers right at the back, since they have quite a few of those skull catapults. Looks like some of them are trying to shoot the gyrocopter. That's fine, I'd rather they do that than shoot our main formation. We are actually taking some damage on this corner unit. We'll just tank it and get shooting. And when it comes to the shooting, another thing to consider, on top of our epic strength on those tooltips, is reload speed. Our reload speed is down to almost nothing at this stage. The main delay between shots is the guys shuffling about trying to face the target they're about to fire at. The lack of reload animation no longer matters. We've got semi-automatics with plenty of ammo. It's just out of control. I bet our damage is like 4 or 5 times what it's supposed to be on the base units at this stage. We're just annihilating everything. Don't know what this thing is stomping on my stone melters. Doesn't really matter what it is. We've got lines of effectively hundreds of hero units firing without reloading. Even these giant things that are probably supposed to be a real problem, well, they just die. This other thing's going to be a similar story. That was their lord as well that went down. That's going to confuse matters even more. With 2 of their commanders dead, their morale's going to be poor. Even that giant thing's about to rout by the looks of things. All good. Now the balance bar's in our advantage. You can see I'm using some special abilities. Our engineer and Oldor do have some things that further buff the shooting of nearby units, both just when they're nearby them passively and with abilities. It's only going to get worse and worse from here in terms of how overpowered we are. I'm trying to stop their catapults firing using the gyrocopter in melee. doesn't appear to be working that well, and our Thunderers aren't helping very much at the back. There's the spawn. It's just too late for that to do anything at this stage. Having one unit of scouts be taken out of the battle will make no difference. This big thing is still at large, probably because it managed to get behind us. That's a really good way to counter our plan. Just kind of get behind us, because I'm probably not paying enough attention to turn round fast if I haven't decided to play the battle on slow motion mode, which I occasionally do if I feel like micro is going to be required. In this one, not really. That's what's great about this whole build. I'm barely having to do anything in the actual battle because our units are just standing there shooting everything around them, and it's doing the business. Here's a nice flashy looking Scorpion that's going to get shot to pieces in a second. I think the Tomb Kings have the best looking unit. So much cool stuff we've seen so far. You just have to pay quite a lot of money actually to pay as them. I probably would have done it if I'd had the Tomb Kings DLC. Well, down they went. Here's the end of the battle. Our losses were negligible. We absolutely flattened them. I think it's going to be a rare circumstance that actually challenges Uldor's main force at this stage. And the Tomb Kings, having lost millions of armies and now starting to lose some of their major bits of territory, well, I don't think they're going to be able to provide that challenge anytime soon. So in part 7, I suppose I'll just finish them off and then see what happens.